Hello, everyone. You're back here with an intelligent discussion. I'm your host, Ben. You're here with Will and Justin. Today, we're going to be talking about aliens. Are they real?
Are they real, Ben?
I don't think so. I'm not a believer. What about you, Will? What do you think?
I hope they're not real.
Justin?
I think they're real. They got to be real.
So
Ben, why don't you believe?
We got three dissenting opinions. I don't believe in aliens for a number of reasons. Primarily, and we'll kind of get into this. One of the reasons we wanted to do this episode was on a theory called the Fermi Paradox. Justin, you want to explain that? Because I don't.
The basis of the Fermi Paradox is for those of you who don't know, pretty much it's just the idea that if there was or is sentient life out there in the universe, let alone in the Milky Way galaxy, why have we not discovered it yet, or why has it not yet discovered us? I mean, because if it's so possible that there is life, and people tend to claim that it's impossible there is not other life, why is it that we have not discovered it yet, or vice versa?
So you're saying there should be aliens?
That's
the whole point of the Fermi Paradox, though, is that there should be aliens, mathematically speaking.
So yeah, mathematically speaking, yeah, there should be.
So where are they?
So I kind of want to weigh in. I did a little brushing up on this because I'd learned about this actually back in college. Will was the first guy that actually turned me on to this. Hot. Sorry. Never mind. I was gonna make a Joe Rogan joke, but I'll skip it. When I started redigging into this, I just jotted down some interesting things that kind of stuck out to me. The universe that we live in is 90 billion light years wide. Okay.
The observable universe.
The observable universe. There's over 100 billion galaxies. And in each one of these galaxies, there's over 100 billion to maybe 1,000 billion. I didn't know that's how you could count, but 1,000 billion stars. All right. And with that means that there are hypothetically trillions of habitable planets throughout the known observable universe. If you just want to squeeze it down to the Milky Way, there's 400 billion stars. There's about 20 billion sun-like stars, so stars that are similar to what we call the sun. And if only 0.1% of all the habitable planets in the Milky Way galaxy, that's about 1 million planets that could theoretically support life. And so even just in the Milky Way galaxy, there's potentially 1 million other options for life. Why aren't we seeing it? Where is it? Just again, that gives you kind of an idea of scale. Like, it's almost desensitizing to hear billion stars. What? There's no quantification that's.
I don't even think our brains could actually conceptualize a number that big.
Not a chance.
Now, Ben, you said you don't believe in aliens. Are you talking all extraterrestrial life, even microbial, or are you speaking specifically to interstellar civilization?
I definitely don't believe in interstellar civilization. I believe that life is a unique phenomenon, and it happened uniquely here. If we understand science to be true, out of nothingness, something was born. And I think that's a unique phenomenon. And from that, I don't think it's likely that something like that will ever happen again. That's not something that we've been able to replicate or recreate. And, maybe 5 billion years in the future, we might be able to, but as of right now, I just don't see that being a reality.
Justin, could you elaborate on your belief?
I definitely think life exists in some capacity. I'm not talking the stereotypical like flying saucer, laser beam, or just like Steven Spielberg. Yeah, I'm just not talking about Martians or aliens. I mean, life could exist in any way, shape, or form, and it doesn't have to be oxygen-based life like us or like the life forms on our planet. I mean, it could be nitrogen, it could be carbon. It could straight up be anything that could be surviving out there in the universe. What's harder for me to believe that I also don't rule out is the possibility that in order for life to develop, I mean, life on Earth went from microbial life to, just like really basic sea life to eventually terrestrial life, and we were swapping between terrestrial sea life, and there's the evolution of the things on our planet. So many things had to happen. I find it really hard to believe, but I guess not out of the realm of possibility, that it sounds crazy to say, I don't know, that potentially humans are just the first to jump all the hurdles, if that makes sense. Like if there's a race that you're running in order to become a fully evolved sentient species, let alone a starfaring one, I think it's nearly impossible, but I guess I'm not going to rule it out that humans are the first. Well, for whatever reason, we checked every box, we jumped every hurdle, we just so happened to evolve to become sentient. And that is a whole nother episode in itself, where we are cursed with the ability to think about this sort of thing. And, are we just thinking that we can't be alone in the galaxy because that's a scary prospect? Are we thinking like that we are alone when we really aren't? I mean, I don't know, but that's kind of my thoughts on that.
My opinion on the matter kind of converges with Justin's. I believe that like microbial life is bountiful throughout the Milky Way galaxy. And then you also have plant life, which is also plentiful, but not as abundant as microbes. And then small fauna is even more rare than that. And then you have intelligent civilizations like the one that we represent. We might be the only one, if not the first one. And we're going to talk about something called the Great Filter in a little bit, but that plays a big part into why Justin and I believe almost the same thing on this matter. But I think that humanity is the first. And that's because of the Great Filter, all the things that had to happen in order for us to get here today to sit on this and talk about this kind of subject. So many variables had to come together in just the right way at exactly the right time that it is like the chance of it happening again, even in the grand scope of the universe, is so close to zero. It's basically zero.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I've seen a couple really interesting and colorful usages of statistics to try and quantify how unlikely it is that all of these events would happen in just the right order, that we now are able to have this conversation, that it really feeds into that. Of course, somebody eventually wins the lottery, but 100 million people don't win the lottery. And if there's 100 million sentient, habitable, theoretically planets in our galaxy, I'm willing to bet a considerable sum that there's not another one floating around there. So that kind of plays into it. Where we come to the Fermi paradox is it's back to that challenge that any life faces to overcome to perpetuate their own existence. And so, when you talk about extinction events, when you talk about, massive plagues, things like that, things that would kill off a population, these are all little hurdles that life has to go through and jump over in the race of becoming a transgalactic civilization where you theoretically could survive the collapse of a galaxy. So we're definitely not there as a species, but I'm of the opinion that there's no other species out there, and that we are the first. And if there are others, we better hope we are the first, because heaven help us if Independence Day actually shows up.
Do you think we are the first and only, or just the first?
I think we're the first and only.
I think we're just the first. I believe that there will be others to follow, but even if we do expand to a few star systems, the chance of us encountering another civilization that's at the same step in the evolutionary process as us is so low that we may expand and die off before we ever encounter something that's on the same level of sophisticated intelligence as us. And maybe that's a unifying factor for other aliens out there, if they exist, is they look up at the stars and their state of consciousness is itself so rare that every single time they look up and ask, are we alone? And they die asking that same question.
I want to ask both of you, because Ben, you mentioned the Fermi paradox again. Obviously, if life is out there, why haven't we found it? Have you ever heard of the novel The Dark Forest?
Not until earlier today, my guy.
Oh, did you look it up?
No, I heard you talking about it.
Oh, you heard me talking to Will about it. Okay, so the novel itself is only important to pose this question, really. I mean, it's a good book, but pretty much, if we're asking ourselves, why haven't we discovered other life yet, if it exists, the novel poses an interesting question, basically saying that sentient life doesn't want to be found for fear that immediate and initial discovery of other species or other aliens, quote unquote, will be immediately hostile. So all life lives in the dark forest, aka the galaxy, and basically goes around trying not to be discovered, concealing their movements, concealing their energy consumption and usage, concealing light production, knowing that if another civilization was to discover that, they would be like, wow, do you guys see this? There's aliens. Like, we have to go eradicate them, because how do we know how they're going to react? What are your thoughts on that?
Will, do you want to chime in first?
It is a dangerously safe extraterrestrial policy for somebody to have. If you treat all ETs as hostile with malign intentions, then you will be, safe. Because if you just keep to a policy of it's them and it's us, all of us together against all of them, they will never have good intentions for us, then you'll have increased security when you're dealing with these kind of situations. But you're also closing off the opportunity that you have for a beneficial exchange of ideas, information, and resources. So that's what I think. It's a trade-off.
Sorry. Yeah, I agree with you to some extent. E.T. traumatized me as a child, so not a fan of
That's the real reason.
Is that why? Yeah, that's the real reason you don't believe in
it. Nah, for me, I agree with the idea that if extraterrestrial life discovered us or vice versa, unless we were somehow miraculously, again, with a microscopic percentage of a percentage chance of this happening, unless we are in all ways equal, it is immediately going to dissolve and, basically become a hostile environment, in which case one is going to eradicate the other as quickly as possible.
And this is assuming we can communicate.
Right. And that's what I was just about to bring up is, we're carbon-based life forms with mouths. What's to say 800 billion light years that way, they're helium, they're gaseous and they have telepathy and no physical, how would we communicate?
Have you guys seen the movie Arrival?
Yeah.
That is a good, if you're talking about how would we communicate,
put that on your short list, Ben.
Yeah, that's a good one for you, Ben. It's
Let me make a short list and then I'll put it on.
The whole basis of the movie is communication. So,
well, and again, as someone who personally makes a living communicating and struggles with it every day, communication is such a nuanced thing.
Note to self:
I got in a fight with my wife today.
Do not send Ben McElroy
to
as an envoy for alien life.
I think if we discover an intelligent alien civilization, they may not look like us, but they will behave exactly like us.
I don't know. And the reason I don't know, I'll bring it back to our Carthage conversation. If just certain key things about our history were different, we would be different. If Jesus Christ never existed, what would Western, what we consider now Western philosophy, what would Western, what would the Declaration of Independence look like if it had a Confucius or a, Muslim Islamic centering? Would it look again, we only act the way we do because of things in our society. If there's no religion on another part of the galaxy, maybe they're more moral, maybe they're less. I would assume they're less.
I don't think religion is going to necessarily be the key determining factor. I think it would be, I did not mean to cut you off. Well, hopefully you're about to say the same thing and you can build off of me. I don't think it would necessarily be religion, or I guess it would be the belief system, sure, but it would be what their intrinsic moral values were, what kind of society it was. Humans are extremely individualistic. We have, there's over 240 countries in the world. There are different customs, there are different traditions, different languages, everything. I mean, if you take that and contrast it with, let's say, an alien planet where, just to draw a comparison, in the year 1000, they waged war on a planetary scale and unified their entire planet. So there's no countries. There's just like the Ben Empire, right? Yeah, whatever. And their way of thinking and the way they view themselves as a species is entirely different than us. I think that would be a serious point of contention.
I feel you guys are talking more about their culture instead of their biological behavior. Because if a species were to expand throughout the stars, it must first expand throughout its entire planet. And we know that humans we're curious, we're greedy, we're competitive, and we like to explore and we like to spread out. So in order for us to go to the stars, we have to stick to those simple behaviors that's kind of hardwired into our psychology. Why wouldn't an ET do that? Because if they're isolationist and sedentary, why should we expect to encounter that kind of mindset out in the stars?
Right.
And assuming that they come from, there goes Ben. Assuming that we come from a Goldilocks planet, and they would also have to come from a Goldilocks planet, they would need one thing in order to, like, probably the single most important technological discovery in the history of humanity, and that's fire. If you can't make fire, then the most basic structures of human society that we know today would not form. And if you can't make fire, every single other technological discovery and invention that came after that would not be possible. So these aliens, if we discover them, would have to come from a planet exactly like ours that is capable of producing fire.
Do you think it would have to be exactly like ours? Like same climate? Like, do you think it couldn't be like a cold planet or an arid planet? Or
if fire is possible, then it would be acceptable. But you can't make fire on Titan. So
right.
I wouldn't expect
you can blow up Jupiter though.
So I wouldn't expect something like us to come from Titan. I mean, there's probably, alien bugs swimming in lakes of methane that breathe carbon dioxide or hydrogen, whatever it is. And
those mother truckers are hot all the time.
Cold, actually.
Do you think it's possible that human civilization in this scenario could have done things that other alien civilizations could not have? Like, do you think it's possible that an alien civilization could make contact with us and have starfaring capabilities? However, when we explain to them that, like, we split the atom, they think that's a complete anomaly and that's just incredible. Like, they never would have thought of such a thing.
So you're saying that the steps of their technological ascendancy are in a different order?
I guess so, yeah. Or yes. Like, do you think it's possible that, I don't want to say they like cheated or skipped a step, but maybe space travel or folding a wormhole? What's up?
I don't want to interrupt you. What you're saying echoes so perfectly with the dumb answer I wanted to give that I wanted to say it before Will talked. There's a stupid video skit where a guy is like, he meets an alien and they sit down to have a conversation. He's like, we have so much we want to compare. We want to compare like society, religion, the way we do things. He's like, we got to talk about math. And he starts like doing like math on a whiteboard. And the alien's like, what is this? And he's like, it's math. It's the language of the universe. And he's like, I've never seen this shit before in my life. And he's like, you guys are in space. How did you get to space without math? And he's like, it's not that complicated. You burn fuel and you just throw shit in the, and and then like the whole point of it was like, what if what we consider like there's no way for us to know that the way that we quantify the world in numbers and size and metrics is the same,
right?
Or even on the same scale, like
we have a sample size of 1. And that's us. That's all we know about. It's just us. And any experiment with a sample size of 1 isn't really valid. But what other choice do we have? Sample size of 1 is a lot better than 0.
No kidding.
I'm going to keep sketchy studies off the topic list today. So what do you think the likelihood is of like a hive mind or like a universal push?
Low. I don't know, personally. Like a hive mind from another sentient life form?
Mm-hmm.
Low. I think that's probably almost impossible. I mean, it would have to be not only would life have to accomplish all those extremely specific milestones just to become life. But to do that, I mean, I don't know. I don't see that being anything outside of like an insectoid, or I mean, like I don't think you would ever see like a humanoid species with a hive mind, and it just seems very difficult.
I know Will is going to want to hop in here because I enjoy hive minds as a theoretical concept. With the conjoining of technology with human beings, we're talking like the link that Tesla's developing. At some point, you and I will be able to communicate non-verbally with no body language. Just literally, I can literally communicate with you from a distance. Obviously you can do that right now with a phone, but you're still using words, you're still using language. If you get to a point where you're able to do this with none of that, have you achieved, like, I don't want to say like telepathy, but you can basically implant your thoughts, your beliefs, your ideas into someone else's head. And again, like, obviously this is weaponizing shit, but what if someone like hacks it all and they're like, well, now I'm inside your head, like, let's make you think this, or let's make you remember this, or forget, that can very quickly become, hey, like we can teach school through this. Does that make sense? Like,
so you're saying that this is a potential pathway to a human hive mind?
Yeah, and I don't think it's that crazy. Like, you can brainwash people with traditional methods now. Imagine if something's literally in their head.
I'm going to let Will take this away. The one thing I will say is, if you were trying to propose this as a bill, or you were like out there campaigning or something for this, I would do everything in my power to make sure this did not happen.
I would agree.
100%. But here's the thing. Jeff Bezos is going to push it and people are going to buy it.
Are you sure?
So, yeah. I don't think Jeff Bezos will do it, but I'm sure he'll sell it.
Well, Jeff Bezos will sell anything from A to Z.
Mm-hmm.
And Ben, your idea would work on paper, but there is one important aspect that you would have to neglect in order for your idea to come to fruition, and that is identity. It would be possible if no participant had identity, because I will still be me, which is just with your thoughts.
I hope you're right.
I hope we never have to find out.
Yeah.
I don't know that we'll find out in my lifetime, but I hope my kids don't get any crazy ideas.
Well, speaking of what we're going to be alive for in our lifetime, Elon Musk says that we're going to have a colony on Mars sometime in the next couple of decades. And probably by the time that we die, a city on Mars, which means that there will be a population that is able to reproduce. Now, what happens when the first human is born on Mars? Are they an alien?
Yes.
Yeah, I guess. I'm also going to preface all this by saying I am not the biggest Elon Musk fan. I am not a serious believer in everything that he does. I mean, I think he's got great ideas, but I just do not think he is humanity's brightest and best. I don't know. I think he's a visionary, but I'm not on board with everything that he proposes, and certainly not from a business standpoint.
Here's the thing. Justin just lost about 8,000 points of internet clout.
That's fine, man. Let the Elon fanboys come for me. I don't have anything against colonizing Mars, but I think there's better individuals up there to idolize and look to for scientific prowess and, humanity's next step.
Okay.
But in terms of someone who was born on Mars, are they an alien? It depends on your definition, I guess. I mean, they're still human, right?
They're an extraterrestrial.
What?
They would be an extraterrestrial.
Yeah, that's true. Well,
so if you just want to go with the Webster dictionary, belonging to a foreign country or nation, as soon as we do become transplanetary, you are a different. You're not necessarily a different nation. Like, I don't know, like if a bunch of Texans volunteer to go to Mars, is Mars now a Texas colony? I don't think so, but it's an Earth colony. Like that's what like the traditional thinking is. Like it's not going to be the U.S. colony on Mars, and there's going to be a Chinese one down. Like I would hope.
I think that's exactly what's going to happen.
That's a terrifying thought.
That's a horrible thought.
It is.
What's a really scary thought is if they don't fix these bathrooms before we try to get to Mars.
there is precedent for figuring out what's going to happen when we first start settling on Mars, and that is the colonization of North America.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you look, all these different European countries, they established their own colonies. Like there were Dutch colonies, British colonies, French colonies, Spanish colonies, and they fought wars over these colonies. And we're probably going to do the same thing on Mars, only they're going to be American, European, Chinese. And
I don't mean to interrupt you. I'm just imagining being on Mars and like you're running to get back to your colony, and there's like a guy with a space gun behind you, and he shoots and he misses, and he like blows up the bubble that your colony's in, and just everybody dies.
Yeah, that's hilarious.
I don't know if I'm in the unpopular camp here, but I absolutely think that colonization of other planets would be better underneath one entity.
A single entity.
Yeah, like UESC, like United Earth Space Command or something. Like we send out a group to colonize, because the second it turns into like a neo-colonization situation where it's like countries for themselves try to, develop country or new colonies and win glory, that just turns so ugly so fast. Like I think that exploration to the stars needs to be done under the banner of humanity, not under the banner of the nation state. For sure.
I agree with you. My worry is that is not going to be the case. If anything, some group of crazy individuals will probably be the first colonizers.
Well, if you think about who settled Plymouth Rock, it was a bunch of
right. I was about to say, like
coders.
those religiously persecuted were like, all right, F it, we're out of here.
I would go.
Right.
I would stay. I would stay. No way am I going up there. Not until there's like established infrastructure and a self-sustaining population. I'm not going to be one of the first. No way.
But dude, you could have a road named after you on Mars.
I can do that here on Earth.
I mean, yeah, but that's just objectively not as cool,
Well, thanks.
At least in my opinion.
I'll take Earth gravity over Mars gravity. Thank you.
That's fair. But like,
now,
so for
I
me,
want to go back to what Justin said. If we have like a single entity that goes out to Mars and colonizes under one banner, Thomas Paine wrote in his book Common Sense before the American Revolutionary War that it was illogical for a country, England, to rule a continent, America. Could we extrapolate his argument to a country, a single country ruling over a planet? And if so, once enough people are born on Mars and we see this genesis of a Martian identity, would we see a Mars that no longer wants to answer to people another planet away? Will there be a war for Martian independence?
So I think that a war for Martian independence is not out of the realm of possibility. I 110% can absolutely see why that would take place. I think it's avoidable. So, I mean, in the case of Britain presiding over America, this is why it's such a fine line. I mean, it's practically the exact same situation. You give foolhardy settlers a brand new set of land. I mean, brand new. On Mars, there was nobody that was already living there. So truly, it is like straight up brand new this time. So, you send these people, you equip them, you give them the resources, and pretty much you say, hey, like, colonize this place. The way we avoid them developing a fierce sense of like Martian independence is fostering the same thing that we talked about when you were like, we need to send a group of humans, not a group of Chinese, Russian citizens, American citizens. Like, if we can keep the narrative, like, you guys are the next step in humanity's future, like not just Earth's future or Mars's future. Like, look, you guys are going to go do this. Then we're going to send people to another planet. Then we're going to send people to another planet. But it would take so much. There would have to be a complete breakdown of the political system or incorporation of Mars on a global scale. And it almost seems impossible. So I think that conflict and them finding a national sense or a planetary sense of identity is highly likely.
Yeah, I agree with basically everything you said, Justin. For me, I'm just sitting here thinking, I'm like, if the Earth comes to a point where we're like, all right, we're going to go send people to Mars to set a permanent colony, who's going to be on that first ship? And for me, it's not a human ship. It's a ship of either people that are crazy enough to want to go, or people with the resources to go. You know, like you're not going to be walking down the streets in South Africa and being like, hey man, you want to hop on a boat and go across the universe? You know, like and you know, if this ship is launched from the United States, will Chinese, you know, like people from China be allowed on there? Will people from the Ukraine, like, not only that, how will they bridge, language barriers, cultural barriers? I think the only chance for a human front to do this would be once that initial group of people goes to Mars and reproduces, because those people will be the first people that, regardless of nation of origin of their parents, all have the same group of friends, the same group of peers, the same background. That is not a realistic possibility. Even if, you know, the UN works or China and the United States clash and one of us emerges the victor, it's not like at home there won't be civil unrest or, you know, conflict. You know, that's almost impossible. So I think the only way for humanity to truly unite is to allow it to happen organically. And unfortunately, I think we've just dug ourselves such a deep hole here that until Mars is a reproducing colony, it's impossible.
What do you think, Will?
I think the only way to unify Earth is to colonize Mars. Because right now, Earth is the only place where humans are. And once there are cities and populations on Mars and they develop enough to the point where we start calling them Martian, I could easily see a scenario where it is us and them. And once there is a them in the picture, that gives the Terrans, the people of Earth, a rival, somebody else that's not them, somebody that's far more different than we are here on Earth. So if we want somebody to send out colonies onto other planets, it's going to have to be a split, independent effort to colonize Mars piecemeal. And once that Martian identity forms, then, you know, Earth as one can act in a unified way.
Do you think that we have to kind of make it an us versus them thing? I mean, obviously, all throughout human history, all throughout, you know, the history of nations, whenever there's a them, it makes it extremely easy to unify your populace. But maybe just in the beginning, the way we refer to them or the way that we interact with them, you know, if we would call them like, oh, the Martians, or like, oh, the people, like, you know, I mean, it's hard. It seems silly to refer to them as anything else. But if it, you know, could make a serious difference and we didn't purposely attempt to alienate them from Earth's culture and, you know, just foster the same exact culture we have here, just in a different place. Do you think, do you see that as viable or possible?
If we can foster an identical culture, then yes. But I don't think we would be able to foster identical culture.
I see it becoming like a neo-America almost. Because, I mean, if you look at America in the, you know, 1800s, early 1900s, like people looking for opportunity, whether you're a wealthy merchant or an immigrant or someone who's on the run or someone who's already in prison or a soldier or what have you, a sailor, gun for hire, anything like it. You came to America to make a new life for yourself, or you came to settle the frontier, or I almost see it developing akin to the United States, where people are just like, you know what, I'm down on my luck here in Singapore or Germany, you know, whatever, my family died or I'm in gambling debt, like I'm going to Mars. And you could just be a brand new person, you know, and I'm sure there's going to be a million slots to fill, jobs that they need you for. So I foresee that being kind of a unifier.
Ben?
Mars is the 21st century Australia for the British
I was thinking about that.
I don't think we're going to start it off as a penal colony, because Justin, what you said makes me think that there are going to be two phases in the early part of Martian history. The part where people pay large sums of money to go to Mars, and then a second part where transfer to Mars is inexpensive and abundant, and maybe people get paid to go to Mars instead.
Right. Well, that's kind of exactly what we saw with the colonization of America. In a different sense, they sent settlers over. They were like, "Look, you're literally going to set up a colony for us. Like, this is your job." And then once it became self-sustaining, once America became independent, they pretty much just opened up the doors. People were like, "America, America," and then they just went. If it's as easy as jumping on, if it's as easy as jumping on. However long of a flight it is, you jump on, you go through planetary screening, they vet you, and you go through the quote unquote like Ellis Island of Mars, and once you're there, what does that look like?
Well, that's anybody's guess.
Well, that's what we're talking about right now. Right now it's roughly a 7-month journey to get to Mars from Earth. At least that's what Google told me. So, credible source or not, we'll see. One thing that becomes apparent when you're talking about this is we're not recognizing the difference between settling Mars and settling America. And the reason I think that's important from a historical perspective is when people came to America, there was this promise of success. The American dream was very quickly born and marketed. And then, it became manifest destiny, and it turned into a lot of things that it shouldn't have been, and things that end up being a big problem for humanity when you're talking about like American slavery, the Civil War, all these things that now having like overcome to a large extent, there's not going to be this mystique around Mars for the first people that go to be like, you're going to go to this unknown land full of like natural resources and these strange local people that inhabit it. And, go and make yourself a farm with a family. And you're not going to be able to just walk out on Mars and start farming the dirt, So I think that's an important part. Like, obviously, however we do manage to sustain life on Mars, whether that's underground colonies, whether that's a enclosed faux atmosphere,
whether we terraforming
it sounds cool. And again, I don't know how that works. I've heard people talk about like setting off millions of micronuclear explosions at the poles of Mars to start warming it up. And like, on the one hand, yeah, if you can sustain nuclear fission for a few seconds every second for 10 years, you can probably heat up the planet. What about radiation? What about other problems?
Yeah.
You're looking at me like I'm crazy, but like
no, I'm just thinking like there seems to be a lot more drawback than positive to that.
Right. That's what I'm saying. But that was what they were talking about, and I was like, there's got to be a better solution.
Yeah, seriously.
Gentlemen, I will be right back. Keep going.
Okay. I have a question for you, Justin.
Okay. All right.
Let's say an advanced alien civilization finds us. Can you cite historical precedents as to what you think would happen to us humans after they contact us? Or you could just speculate.
So can I use an example from historical precedents to try to think of how we would react to aliens visiting us, or how the aliens would react to us? Or am I mostly explaining my thoughts about the human reaction?
Human reaction. Or okay. what they do to us, what happens generally. Take it away.
So I think it's entirely dependent on how the aliens react to us, or how they present themselves. If they show up and are, super ambiguous, they're just kind of like floating there in their ships, and they're sending envoys to, they're like, hey, where are your heads of state, or like who's in charge, and they're actually holding dialogue. I think it's harder to draw upon precedent to figure out where we would go that route, because most of the time, most meetings in human history where an advanced and completely foreign civilization goes to something much less advanced, like in the case of the Europeans coming to North America or whatnot. I mean, they were diplomatic with each other slightly, but there was also a lot of hostility that carried on for extended periods of time. So I could foresee, if talks break down or we can't even get past the language barrier, we can't even figure out how to communicate with them, and the heads of state from Earth basically say, like, okay, you know what, this is kind of freaking us out, you guys need to leave. And the aliens don't even understand because they're there to make contact. I could see us pushing them out by force. I would really hope that there's a way we could communicate, in which case, maybe we could, I don't want to say find a way to coexist, because in no means do I just want, aliens coming and like taking up space on our planet, not to be xenophobic or anything. It'd be cool if they were living here, but I don't think we should coexist per se. I could also foresee a situation where they come and it just immediately becomes hostile. Unfortunately, whether they choose to initiate that or humans being humans, if we look at it in the case of Europeans going to like Mesoamerican civilizations and they almost revere them as gods, and then the Europeans are pretty much, all right, boys, like round them up or, take the gold or do whatever. And the second you feel like your way of life is threatened or your families are threatened, or in this case, our entire civilization is threatened, I definitely think we would fight. And humans have shown that we would continue to fight for as long as necessary until we're practically eradicated. Does
Ben,
that answer your question?
Yes. Yes, it does. Ben, what do you think would happen to the human race if an advanced alien civilization appeared? How would the aliens treat us?
We would die incredibly quickly. Here's my mentality, and I'll use a historical precedent, and I'm sure Justin actually kind of just talked about it, and I'll use my interpretation of humanity today. There has never been a good ending to a story where a more powerful civilization encroaches upon the territory of a less powerful civilization. If there is a multi-planetary, multi-galaxy advanced life form that visits us and we are just behind technologically, whatever, in every way we are behind, I doubt that they would treat us any differently than we treat animals. Like if we have truly nothing to offer them and we are impeding on their available resources in space, it might not even ever come as a warning. They might literally just show up and start nuking us. Like,
what if they don't have nukes?
And
they can travel to the stars. They have nukes.
Well, again, we brought that up earlier. Like, we don't know. Like, what if they don't have the same elements that we have?
Then they probably have a weapon that we can't even conceive of.
Right. And so
directed energy or
Death Star rays at us, like, oh dear. It's all right though. We have the power of God and anime on our side.
Oh Lord,
probably don't have both of those.
I have an interesting question for both of you, kind of piggybacking off of what Ben was saying. Is if you take the case of, not the Senegalese, not from like Senegal, but is it the song? I cannot think of the people, but basically the people on the remote island who are indigenous to that specific island.
The uncontacted tribe.
Yeah, the uncontacted tribe, where it is sanctioned by the UN and by individual nations, where like you are not to speak to these people, like you are not to interact with them. For sure as hell, do not go as a Christian missionary and go try to convert them. Like, please leave them alone because you're blowing their mind and they just don't even know what's going on. Do you think, Ben, I know you don't believe in aliens, but just to ponder the question for a moment, do you think it's possible that there are other civilizations who have already discovered us and who see that we have the capabilities to be a hyper-intelligent civilization where they're like, maybe they could develop star travel. Maybe they could contact us one day. Do you think that in the intergalactic community, they pretty much said, leave the humans alone, like let them figure it out?
Yeah, it's an interesting question. I doubt it. There's a couple reasons for that, but I think that if we did discover a highly advanced alien species, like say, we're just hanging out and then all of a sudden we get contacted from a different entity from a different galaxy. And they're like, "What up, Earth? We'll be there in 5 days." Whatever that interaction looked like, I think it would serve as a massive catalyst for the Earth and to start like a human, like a Earth mentality rather than Chinese or American or Russian. Because all of a sudden we would be visited by extraterrestrial life that can travel space multiple times faster than we can. And I think that would be a humongous wake-up call for our civilization to realize if Earth explodes or gets invaded and annihilated, the human race is gone. And that's not an American problem, that's not a Mexican problem, that's a human problem. And so I think that would be a humongous catalyst societally and technologically to say, forget about making apps, forget about making money. We need to figure out how to colonize multiple planets and multiple systems. Now, we're already behind.
Forget about making money?
Really...
Ooh, you're asking a lot of the human race, my friend.
Okay, but right. Well, I hear what you're saying, but at the same time, like in times of great crisis, humans, especially in the 20th century, were shown to give up massive sacrifices to achieve a greater goal.
Certainly.
And if like we're literally looking at a potential apocalyptic event, what am I going to do? Sell solar panels? Like,
I think we could pull it off. I want to ask Will the same. I have a follow-up question that's sort of in the same vein, but I want to hear what Will has to say about this.
Could you repeat the question?
Yeah, pretty much. Do you think it's possible that, what do you think about what Ben said about if we were contacted? One, do you think it would be a catalyst for human civilization to say like, hey, look, we really need to get into the stars because if something happens to Earth, we're pretty much, forget about the human race because it's over with.
We kind of already think that way too. Like
Definitely.
we know that if Earth is gone, humans are gone. And that is reason enough alone to expand to another planet.
Well, we see that with climate change. People talk about we only get the one Earth and that sort of thing. Do you think it's possible that if we're entertaining the idea of other sentient life forms out there, that they are they're giving us time to contact them?
No, I think they haven't contacted us at all. We have not been discovered. I mean, Earth's radiosphere is at most 200 light years in diameter.
Mm-hmm.
And at the farthest edge of that, you're not picking up clear language. It's garbled garbage that probably wouldn't even be able to be deciphered as something coming from an intelligence. Only until you get closer would you actually be able to hear like words coming from these radio signals that these aliens would just so happen to pick up in space. And 200 light years is nothing. It is nothing. And so the only way that they would have to discover us is by accident. And that is like they would have to land on Earth by accident and be like, oh, there are beings here. I think that's so unlikely that it hasn't happened. We're not being protected. We're not being kept in isolation. We just haven't been around long enough. And it could be perhaps that our modes of communication, the stuff that we're shooting out into the stars is so obsolete that you could liken it to sitting in your house with a Morse code transmitter and wondering why nobody's answering because nobody uses Morse code anymore.
Okay. I like that.
I want to hop in real quick.
Mm-hmm.
I know you have a follow-up question. I don't want to.
No, please carry on.
Are you guys aware of what man-made object is the deepest in space right now?
Voyager 2. No.
Justin, any guesses?
I mean, my best guess would be Voyager 2. I don't know. I mean, I'm assuming some research satellite that's deep out there, but I don't know what kind of.
Oh, is it the?
It's the manhole cover.
The what? Manhole cover.
All right, here we go, boys.
It's not Breakthrough Starshot.
On August 27th, 1957, there was a nuclear bomb test. And basically, the pressure traveled through the sewage systems. And there was a camera. There was a camera that shot one frame per millisecond, okay? And this manhole cover, basically all the pressure from this nuclear explosion traveling through pipes, being funneled, being built up, basically caused this manhole cover to fly out of Earth at 125,000 miles per hour.
From the surface.
From the surface into space at 125,000 miles per hour. It hit escape velocity and is careening through space since 1957.
Really?
So this dwarfs the 36,375 mile an hour speed of the New Horizons spacecraft. No way. New Horizons.
Really?
Let's go. Which people say is the fastest object launch. Yeah. So it's a manhole cover.
Never heard of that.
I've never heard of that.
I've heard of like the Helios rocket being the fastest vehicle ever.
Nah, dude, 125,000 miles per hour. And then like everybody looked at this and they're like, they started making memes of like 10 million years from now, there's like an alien god like about to embark on a voyage and just a manhole cover like slices it in half.
That's ridiculous to think about.
Oh man.
Crazy. All right, Justin, I'm sorry. I just wanted to.
Oh, no. You're good. That's I don't even know how to process that information.
It's just a fun fact.
Yeah. Seriously. My follow-up question was, and not to get all like conspiracy on, but hypothetically speaking, if Earth was visited by aliens in ancient times, which I actually do not, I believe in aliens. I really don't know where I stand, and probably lean closer to the camp of I don't think that ancient civilizations were visited by aliens and gifted like miracle technology. I think we just don't give ourselves enough credit. Humans are ingenious, and we were able to do things that were lost to the annals of time that we'll never figure out why. Okay, Let's just say we were visited in any capacity. Maybe they just came by and they were like, "Oh, look, humans." Why would they discover Earth and never come back?
Same reason why we went to the moon and never went back. Nothing.
There was just no purpose. They were like, okay, well,
nothing there. I mean, Earth is the practical Garden of Eden for us, but for a Type 2 civilization, why would they even bother?
Well, and not even just a Type 2 civilization. We should really dig into that because I don't know if we've really fleshed out.
Yeah, well, if you want to jump into that,
go first.
I was just gonna say, like, even if this was like an ideal planet, like, again, we have no basis to say that our understanding of time, our understanding of like everything is at all shared throughout the galaxy. You know, at some point we know our sun is going to explode and Earth will be destroyed. Now, for us, we calculate that that'll be many, many millions of years from now. But what if on the galactic scale, that's nothing, and it's not even worth them sending another follow-up or basically they said, yep, this planet's doomed 45 million years in the future. Why even bother? There's 900 billion other planets in the galaxy. We can miss this one, it's like, it could just be something as stupid as like, yeah, they have salt water here. I don't know, again, for us, Garden of Eden, for another being, different criteria of worth.
It's a salad.
But go ahead, Will, break down the.
So what I said before when I referenced the Type 2 civilization is I'm talking about something called the Kardashev scale. And the Kardashev scale is decades old, and it was conceptualized by a physicist who was trying to lay down a framework on how we could categorize the energy consumption of different intelligent extraterrestrial civilizations. A Type 1 civilization is able to harness 100% of the energy production on their home planet. Right now, we human beings as a collective are a 0.75. We should be able to reach Type 1 in the next 1 to 200 years, depending on current events and such. A Type 2 civilization is a multiplanetary civilization that is able to harness 100% of the power of their home solar system. So that would be Earth, Mars, Mercury, Venus, and the Sun. Now, Type 2 civilizations would hypothetically be able to construct and implement and maintain something called the Dyson sphere, which is basically building a giant solar panel or something like that around the sun. Now, this requires some serious science fiction, but it is technically doable in theory. And a Type 3 civilization would be an interstellar civilization that is able to harness 100% of the energy of their home galaxy. So that would be the entire Milky Way. Now, these power levels increase on an exponential level. So a type 2 civilization would be nothing compared to a type 3 civilization. If we see a type 2 civilization, they would be the most advanced alien race that we have ever seen and probably ever will see. But a type 3 civilization to us, they would be like gods. It would be so beyond our comprehension that we really wouldn't be able to do that. And the Kardashev scale, ever since its original publication, has been amended to include a type 4 civilization, which would be a civilization that controls an entire galaxy cluster, multiple galaxies under one flag, if they even use them at that point. And then you could extend this Kardashev scale all the way to a type Omega, which would be an entity that has 100% control over an entire universe. And just to put it into terms, a type Omega civilization would probably be the ones who actually created the universe themselves. So, like, so far advanced that there really isn't anything much else to say about them.
What else could you even say about that?
I mean, like a type something else that controls multiple universes within the multiverse, maybe. I don't know.
My dad's bigger than your dad's empire.
Yeah, but they still snuff out stars like that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. One thing that I thought was interesting, I was reading up on this, and someone made a comment about a way that you could destroy a universe. And essentially, they were talking about different ways that it started out with how we would destroy our own civilization, and this is part of the Fermi Paradox, the great filter. You know, what if Earth is like, hey guys, I think we can harness a black hole to create limitless power for the entire Earth. Let's turn it on, and then all of a sudden the Earth explodes and everyone's dead. You know, if technology gets to the point where we're building nanomachines and like just writing codes, you know, or what if an ancient alien empire existed and they used nanomachines and someone wrote a code that said, like, you know, travel to new planets, disseminate and break apart everything on these planets and reprocess it to make more nanomachines. You know, at some point that will be literally a flood of, you know, robotic locusts that will destroy the universe.
Gray goo.
And right. But it's one of these things where, like, could we theoretically as a human race, like, you know, even if it takes billions of years for these machines to go through space and do this, like, they're not going to die, they're not going to get tired, they're not going to slow down. Like, that is theoretically possible. Like, what would we do as humanity if something like that approached? Like,
there wouldn't be anything we could
Sounds
do.
like a pretty bad way to go. Honestly.
Actually,
Yeah,
well, it would be, if we're going to toy with this idea, it wouldn't be that bad considering how instantaneous and painless it would be. But seeing everything that you've ever known your entire life around you just dissolve into a bunch of microscopic nanobots, that would probably be horrifying.
I think the Earth would probably just nuke itself into oblivion before that happened.
I think we would do something.
Like, we'd be like,
there's no way that humans would stand idly by and be like, okay, well, we're gonna get eaten.
Well,
Like,
what's the alternative? Tell them that Judgment Day is nigh and let the world descend into anarchy. A lot more people would die, a lot more painful deaths.
You know, I thought about that when Ben brought up, you know, like, if aliens sent a message saying, like, hey, we will arrive in 5 days. I think that's quite possibly the worst way to establish contact. If they're going to establish contact, they need to just show up and make contact, because if we received some message right now in this podcast, emergency alert, like, U.S. president receives broadcast that alien life forms will make contact in exactly 7 days. Like, people would lose their shit.
I mean,
that would be the absolute end of everything.
I think that an alien mothership materializing above the White House wouldn't be any better, because we would be like, billions of people would go from no aliens to, oh my God, there are aliens right here, right
How
now.
would they know to go to the White House? This is probably an insignificant detail, but like
if you've watched any alien movie ever, that's where they always go.
Yeah, definitely.
They never go to like China or like.
Yeah, they always want to pick on us, man.
Right.
Hollywood.
Well, so I think for so many people, and the reason why anarchy would become so prevalent if that happened, is the dynamic and the perceived power and safety of society would immediately disappear. You know, like if an alien broadcasts somehow like its whole face to every single person on the earth, it's like, we'll be here in 7 days and we're going to set up shop and take over your planet. Like, bruh, society would just dissolve. Like, you think police officers are going to work tomorrow?
Well, there's a social contract, you know, there's a social contract between your government and your citizens where, like, we will protect you from harm. We can protect you from terrorism. We can protect you from an invading country. We can protect you from disease and health implications. Like, the second that becomes null and void because an interstellar civilization decides to roll up and the government's like, sorry, everybody. Like, I mean, what, you know.
Well, but like, we don't know. Like, and just think about it this way. Let's just assume 50% of the earth doesn't believe in aliens. And let's also assume 50% of the earth doesn't believe in God. You got, 50% of the world that's about to experience a very drastic and significant worldview check. And that could come at the, the edge of like a gun or a laser or, human beings as a planet enslaved.
They may not be hostile. Who knows?
I have something to say about this. If we are lucky and aliens show up onto Earth, if we are lucky, the same thing will happen to us that happened to the natives. And if we are unlucky, they're going to treat us like the way the Europeans treated the Africans. Realistically, I think they're going to treat us the way the Europeans treated the Chinese.
Ooh, that is a very interesting take. So you think rather than show up and, I don't want to say take a stance of like coexistence, but pretty much like, hey, look, we're here. Times have changed. In the case of Europeans and the Native Americans, they're like, what's up? Look, we changed. This really isn't yours anymore. But like, can you just go somewhere? So it's not going to be like that. It's not going to be like Europe and their relationship with Africans where it's like, hey, not only are we here, but you're coming with us and you're working for us. If you want to call it work, I mean, being an enslaved individual, you think they're going to try to profit off of us.
I think because, like I said earlier, I think they're going to be a lot like us because if they have if they're greedy and expansionist and curious and competitive, just like us humans, why would they travel all this way to some backwater blue marble to kill us for fun? They could probably do that at home.
That's extremely true. It'd be a waste of manpower, I guess in this case, xenopower.
Yeah.
Weapons, resources, materials, when they could have something to gain. Almost like an interplanetary Carthage, like we're setting up some kind of client state where we're just going to profit off of you.
Now, when I said that if we are lucky, they'll treat us like the natives, what I mean is that before any of them actually show up, there will be just significant population die-off. Because when the Europeans land, I've heard estimates as high as 90% of the native population died, but that seems really high. So let's say 75% of every single native in America is dead before they even see a European. You could make an argument that we would be lucky because then our fate is sealed. There would be nothing that we could ever do to change our fate. And then if we are unlucky, I mean, we all know what the Europeans did in Africa. We killed a whole bunch of them, sold even more of them into slavery, and it was just a terrible mess all over the place. But in China, they profited, they negotiated, they set up shop. Hey, I'm going to take this little piece for myself. You can have the rest of it. I'm just going to keep this. We're going to make a ton of money off of it. They're going to, if there are multiple alien civilizations involved, they'll probably fight wars with each other here on Earth over these little pieces that they're taking for each other. I mean, the opium wars. And so all these different little pieces will probably go to all these different little factions or all these different little civilizations and all that. And because China at this point was historically weak, it was just as divided as we could say the Earth is today. So I would say if the aliens do show up, they're going to treat us just like the Europeans treated China.
It's a prime time for them to do it, man. Considering the division that we're experiencing globally, it certainly is not a bad time to try to do this sort of thing and set yourself up a little alien Hong Kong, where you can operate and have a commerce hub. And I think another ugly thought.
Sphere of influence.
Huh?
Spheres of influence.
Sphere of influence.
I think another really ugly thought that creates is the idea that humans would, I don't know. This idea to me is so, I hate to be unimaginative with this term, but alien or foreign,
right.
That you would turn against your own species, because I can guarantee we would see humans, the aliens would show up and they'd be like, look, this is the way it is. And they'd be like, okay, bet I can make a buck. I can make a profit. Like, I'll sell you other humans. I mean, because we saw it with Africans selling Africans. So like, why would,
I mean, it was not the Europeans that went into Africa and abducted these people. Like Africans just like you said, Africans abducted other Africans, and those Africans sold them to us. And
I'm sure that there are cases where the Europeans did, and I'm sure they would have more if they did not have friendly African tribes to do it for them. So it's the same with aliens. If they wanted to, they would come up in here and do it themselves. But if they could get other humans to do it, that's just to turn on your own species like that. It's just I don't know. It's a horrifying thought.
Being a traitor to your country is one thing, but a traitor to your species?
Yeah. Sorry, at that point, it's an existential crisis, and you're choosing to simply side
guys
with aliens.
I thoroughly agree with what Will said. I think, and I've heard as high as 98% of the populations in the Americas were decimated before Europeans came. And, I can only imagine, can you imagine being a European in the 1500s and you just walk into a town and there's just decomposing skeletons everywhere. Like people are died in bed. They're dead in the road. And there's one person alive, like in a hut at the edge of the village. Now imagine that there's 7 billion people on Earth and an alien spacecraft lands and they bring with them microbacteria from across the galaxy. And I don't know, they're in, JFK airport.
This could go both ways.
Yeah, I'm interested to hear what you have to say, Well, because I have thoughts on
little World War Z. But if something like that happened where not only is our immune system not set up to fight it, but I don't know, it doesn't function the way our cells do because it's from the other side of the galaxy. I could just see it literally being a situation where oops, accidentally eradicated a species.
I could see it working in our favor. Dependent on if it's carbon-based life, then it's totally possible that it would react extremely harmfully to our bodies. But what if it's nitrogen-based life or something, another, whether they're a human species, an avian species, some kind of reptilian species, whatever have you. Yep. What if the basis of their makeup is just different? So it straight up just does not affect us.
I think it will go the other way. And I'll just say War of the Worlds, and everybody will know what I'm talking about.
That's what I meant.
Because there's also a thing where the biggest epidemics in recent history have been swine flu and avian flu, where these diseases that completely ravage animal populations make the species jump to humans. So if these aliens don't have DNA, which there's no reason that, if they don't have DNA and they have a completely different physiology than we do, our diseases probably won't affect them and vice versa. But the dust in the air could be lethal to them.
Right.
And if I'll bring back the potential aliens from Titan. This is a planet that's so cold that water is lava on this temperature on this planet, and they would drink methane and breathe hydrogen. Are you telling me that they're going to get sick with the common cold or come down with a case of COVID? Probably not. And if their physiologies are so different and they come from planets that have such a different atmosphere than us, they'll probably be in pressure suits and environmentally sealed off. So like there are a whole bunch of other different variables that we can talk about with something like this. But assuming that they breathe oxygen, like 70 degrees and sunny weather, you know, if they land, anything could happen.
I got one. What if an alien ship arrives and it's damaged and it lands somewhere not sexy like Oklahoma?
Well, they don't like outsiders out there anyway, so.
Right.
Right, I'm with you.
Yeah.
Maybe somewhere a little more.
The first human they contact will be a KKK Grand Wizard.
I was about to say, I think our ET friend's gonna bump into somebody that's gonna hit him with like the like, you don't look like you belong around here, friend. Like, you know.
Yeah, I agree with what you're saying. Maybe Oklahoma was a bad choice. Let's go with California. They're a little more accepting. In this damaged ship, a handful of aliens come out and they warn us that they are the last survivors from their own planet 100 billion light years away, but the interstellar travel's real, and that this evil other empire, the only other force in the universe, is coming.
Refugees from the Endgame crisis.
At that point, what happens?
I'd say we cover it up, pretend it never happened.
Yeah, but they're like coming. Like,
if they tell us that they're coming, and I'm assuming these aliens are a lot more advanced than we are, and if they can't stop whatever's coming, what chance would we have? I'd say we cover it up, and ignorance is bliss. And when the end comes, instead of having, you know, anarchy on a biblical scale for God knows how long before this threat actually shows up.
I mean, what if there's a chance that we can beat it?
There wouldn't be one.
That's what I think.
Well, that's the human. So that kind of leads me into my question that I'll pick. That you know, that's the human in me saying like, well, what if we could? You know, what if we are? Let's say, you know, in that situation, Ben, I don't know, man. I'm kind of with Will here. I feel like the masses left to their own devices just simply cannot be trusted. Not to sound like some kind of old Roman consul, but I mean, seriously, bro, just imagine that information goes public and it starts with the residents of California and they're like, well,
Right.
You know, game over, I guess. And then it spreads through the states and then it goes on the global scale and everyone's like, this shit is meaningless. You know, let's say, I guess my piggyback question is, you are abducted by alien life forms. Abducted, you know, whatever. You wake up, you're facing a panel of aliens, you know, whatever they are, and they're like, hey, look, we just made first contact with your civilization. For whatever reason, like, you're not special, you know, there's nothing, you know, you're just you just so happen to be in the right place at this unfortunate situation, the wrong time. They snatched you and they were like, give us one reason why we should not just glass your entire planet. You know, like what if you were going to tell us one thing about the human species that necessitates their continued survival? What trait or what is it about you people that thinks that you should, you know, we shouldn't just destroy you?
This is how I know I doomed the Earth, because I heard you say that and I was like, what do you mean, you people?
Maybe like, get this guy out of here. Yep, shut it down.
It's over. Let me think on that. That's a titillating question.
Well, you guys are thinking, I guess. Unfortunately, I'm not going to have as much time to think, but I'll see if I can spur any ideas for you. I would say, if I had to give my most honest, wholehearted answer, is that humans are capable of the most inconceivable, despicable, horrific things you could ever even fathom. And at the same time, they are also capable of the complete opposite and, you know, the most benevolent, life-changing, planet-changing innovations and experiences that you also could even imagine. And so while we have done despicable things and they have been spurred on by despicable men and despicable women, overall, our species is capable of so much more. And almost it's owed to us that we have the opportunity and the chance to become great and realize our full potential. And, if we're capable of such things, of becoming like you, of becoming spacefaring, or, actually becoming an equitable civilization where we rectify our problems, then we are at least allowed the chance.
I would tell them that there really isn't any special reason why you shouldn't glass our planet. But if you do, you'd better make damn sure to kill every last one of us, because if you don't, then we will come back, and even if it takes 1,000,000 years, we are going to remember what you did to us, and we're going to come for you.
That's
there isn't going to be anything that you can do to stop this.
That is so accurate. I think my answer might get us killed, even if your answer gets us killed, which I want to answer with your answer now, because that's so true. Even if we get killed and 10 people survive, there is no chance we would ever forget that.
No, not at all.
That would become our species' sole.
Not to mention that once we ventured out into the stars, that would make us extremely xenophobic. And then we might be the people abducting random aliens saying, like, why shouldn't we kill you all?
Right. Right.
Will's played enough Stellaris to know where this is going.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, honestly, Justin, I agree with Will. I mean, I think that initially went through my mind when you posed the question. And I was then thinking basically in a very similar way to what you were, was that like the beauty of humanity is in our ability to overcome great adversity. Obviously we've not faced anything at like the galactic level yet, but maybe we can. We don't know. We haven't had that challenge yet. For me, I was looking for some. Even that answer felt almost. It's almost like the Hollywood answer. Like literally, I'm literally sitting here listening to you like give your answer, Justin. I was like, this could be in a movie, like 100%. Like it sounded really good. Like I hope that you understand that. Like I was impressed. For me, it was. As a faith-based individual, I don't believe in the inherent goodness of people. I believe that, a higher power works through us to achieve works. I believe humans are inherently not good. And yes, as a society, we can come together and be beneficial or whatever. I would struggle greatly if I was in that situation, because I don't know that humanity deserves to be saved.
Is belief in
so that's why you would doom us.
Yeah. Just be like, F it. Try to like kick an alien in the nuts on my way out. I don't know.
Is belief in
I don't know
alien
about you
life
guys. I'm just
mutually
different.
exclusive?
I'm sorry, what did you say?
What?
Is belief in God and alien life mutually exclusive?
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, I think so as well. And I think that's definitely part of the reason why I feel the way that I do. And again, this can go in a bunch of different directions, and I don't want it to necessarily get steered one way or the other. But for me, and I tried my best not to bring it up early because I didn't want to totally derail the conversation that way. If it is true that God created everything and his word is inherently true as an individual faith, Jesus Christ coming to this planet and saving it would pretty much rule out the opportunity for other life. And so from a faith perspective, it would almost invalidate scripture, which is a big no-no. So for me, I don't believe that there's sentient life elsewhere in the universe, because that would mitigate Christ's sacrifice.
Interesting.
Yeah, we saved you humans, but what about those xenomorphs on, Delta 7-9 and the chocolate chip galaxy?
So your disbelief in aliens is more so rooted in faith, because that would basically uproot the entire belief.
Right. And what I'll expand a little bit beyond that, and I'll go so far as to say, personally, I don't see any other possible origin for like the Big Bang, like the creation of the universe. Like, again, I'm not sure what vessel or how it worked or how long it took or whatever. Like, I'm not one of those guys that's like, the Earth is only 4,000 years old. Like, if God chose to use evolution, like what we consider evolution, to create the universe, does that invalidate God? I don't think so. And I'd be happy to flesh that out in a later date. But what I do think is there was nothing, and then something happened that started this, the spiral of events that led to us sitting here having this conversation. Okay. And if nothing became something, and now we're here billions of years later having a conversation about theology, it would be almost irresponsible, in my opinion, not to believe that there's a higher power.
Okay.
I'd be happy to get into that, but that's just from my perspective, I don't know. I don't believe black nothingness was existence. And then all of a sudden it was what if we did something and exploded and then everything's here? That just, what a joke of existence if that's truly the case.
Justin, do you
Why
have
am
faith?
I paying taxes?
To be completely honest, no. I genuinely, and I mean this as no disrespect to Ben or you, Will, or anyone else who's listening, but I don't really have any faith. And that's not to say that I'm atheist. I would definitely identify more as agnostic, because I guess if someone showed me irrefutable proof and they were like, yo, this is God, look, this is God, or these are the gods, and I'd be like, okay, fair point. I mean, I can't really argue with that.
GG,
bro. I guess where I'm at right now is I truly faith is not necessarily something that I question or ponder often at all. So I would honestly identify further as nothing. I don't ever question is there a higher power? What will happen to me when I die? Or I believe that people are good or bad simply because they're humans. People are good or bad. You're a good person or you're a bad person. You don't need a moral code to live by that's laid out to you by a biblical being. I think you should simply just be good because you should be good. And if you're evil, then you're not being the way you should. I mean, it sounds cliche. I just think it's that simple. I think it's that cut and dry. I think it's that black and white. I mean, it's a little more nuanced, but no, I don't personally have any faith. I've studied Islam, Christianity, a couple others, Buddhism, but I would definitely say that my belief in alien life does not cross over with my faith at all. So that's why those two things for me are mutually exclusive, because if there was, a big bang, things were created, the steps were taken that human life could develop, whether we are alone or not, there is a chance that the steps that alien life could develop as well.
Okay.
That's my answer.
Just to round it out, I still have yet to be blessed with faith as well. And I hope that aliens don't exist, because it would be the best case scenario for humanity as a whole. If the universe is empty and there is nothing but planets devoid of life with empty oceans hugging dead continents, then there would be nothing out there besides ourselves preventing humanity from becoming that type 3 civilization and expanding to all of the planets. And if it is just us, we've seen the adaptability of humans. If we go to all these different planets, our biologies will change. And pretty soon we're going to have different languages, different cultures. The livestock that we bring with us will change as well. And over the course of millions of years of colonization, humans on one side of the galaxy are going to look, act, and think completely differently than humans on the other side of the galaxy.
Mm-hmm.
And if we continue that trend, we could be the forerunners from Halo. We could be the very first alien civilization in the Milky Way galaxy, and everything that comes after us will be descended from us, our animals, and our technology. Maybe 2.5 billion years from now, some intrepid alien explorers will stumble upon Moon and they'll find human ruins there, and they'll be like, this is the greatest technological discovery ever. We've solved it. There were people who came before us.
Mm-hmm.
And if we could continue that step up and onward, assuming that there isn't a galactic cataclysm, there is nothing that could stop humanity from achieving godhood itself.
I could absolutely see that, because not only would humanity truly being, mutually exclusive, which how utterly American would that to have human civilization be like the most exceptional, like we are the one of the one, like it's very ironic to think of something like that actually playing out. But I think that would not only be a good argument for faith, where people would take that and say, like, look at this, guys, like there is no alien life and we're halfway across the galaxy, like we must be blessed, or like we must be chosen, or whatever. I think that could also
manifest galaxy.
Yeah, like I don't know about you aliens, but I'm just built different, so and then that could also be the prelude into what you said, like almost ascending that mantle, or taking that position of godhood. That probably sounds like sacrilege to Ben. I really
yeah, I know Ben. I don't
know, but it's a very interesting notion to think about another civilization viewing you as like, I can't even like wrap my mind about this. This is incredible. Meanwhile, we were like, what's out, humans, like best civilization out there.
like,
so have you guys seen Men in Black 2?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. At the end of the movie Men in Black 2, I think it's Men in Black 2. Anyway,
I know where you're going.
They're fighting over this tiny micro universe, because there's a whole universe in this little tiny thing, and that's like the whole point of this movie. And then they finally get it, and the guy like brings it back to his like civilization. This is all after the credits. This is like one of the OG after the credit scenes in a movie. And again, it's this little tiny thing that houses an entire universe, and like not just like millions of galaxies, like a universe. And this guy, he gets before this like galactic council of like gods, essentially. And he like, there's all this like auspicious music, and he's handing over this micro universe. And then it shows later that day that guy like playing marbles with it. And I know you said like, oh, this is probably sacrilege. Like, no, man, like I'm pretty chill. But like that's funny to me. Like, could you imagine like we're sitting here having this like deep moral quandary as to whether or not there's alien life, and like we're in a universe that somebody's playing marbles with. Like, it would just be a perspective check. As we're getting close to probably wrapping it up here, do you believe with the expansion of the universe? It's 900 billion. The observable universe is 900 billion light years from one end to the other.
90.
And it's expanding.
I was about to say 900. Oh my God. It's 90, right? It's 90 billion?
90.
Okay.
Is it 90?
90.
Oh, whatever. We're never going to get there. But like, is there a way that the universe destroys itself?
Yes.
Absolutely. You mean the universe itself? Almost like
the universe.
Almost like you could make the argument that Earth is healing itself, or like, we're going through climate change and it's cleansing, the infection or whatever. Like human, you're saying like the universe at a certain point decides that it's going to
like the universe decides to like do a vibe check, and they're like, guess we didn't pass.
If the universe has a start date, it will have an end date.
Absolutely.
Whether it's one way or the other. I mean, even if it doesn't rip itself open, the heat death of the universe would be the most likely one, where, space in all three dimensions is, all the space between you and I is expanding. Like all of space everywhere is expanding all the time, which means eventually at some point, the space between the atoms in our bodies will expand as well. And the space between subatomic particles will expand so much to the extent that there will be so much universe between every single particle in the universe that they will never be able to interact ever again, and everything will be as dead as you could possibly get it.
Yeah, I would have to agree with Will. Whether you mean in the metaphorical sense or the literal sense, the metaphorical sense of the universe, like our universe, like human civilization, let's say we spread across the stars and we're in the darkest reaches of the galaxy and quite literally have proved everyone and everything wrong, whether or not we're the only aliens there, whether that collapses because we got too big for our britches, whether it collapses due to warfare and infantile civilization coming up and taking the mantle, or just the universe, in a literal sense, just tearing itself apart, or space ceasing to exist, or the heat death of the universe. I mean, something will happen. The end is inevitable, man. I mean, thankfully, we're not going to see that garbage, but it's coming. It will come.
That's why we got to hop to it now.
Right. We've only got millions and millions of years, man.
Hey, It's not that long.
Right.
I mean,
well, not in
it's
the
really not at
light year
the
sense.
grand scale of time. It's not that big of a deal.
Hey, time is a construct, man. Tell that to the universe. If we tell the universe time is a construct, it won't end.
It won't actually take me 90 billion light years to get to the
Right.
other side.
Right.
Big brain play. All right, we have time for one more. Any last profound thoughts? Any?
I think we covered everything.
All right,
I think
thanks
we
for
covered a
checking in
lot.
another episode. No, I had a profound thought while we were talking. Like, we were talking about the end of the universe, and it is coming. Like, and again, like, this is just something that I'm kind of happy we ended on. Nobody really thinks about the end, whether that's the end of your life, the end of your bloodline, the end of your nation, the end of your beliefs. Like, that's not a prevalent thought, because it's contrary to what we as human beings are supposed to do, which is self-preserve and always survive. I think if humanity got to the point where they were traveling amongst the stars at speeds incomprehensible to us now, again, even if you can move at the speed of light, it'll take you 90 billion years to get from one end to the other, and it's moving further away from you as we go. That's a profound thought. I just remember my actual thought. I'm going to totally forget everything I just said because it was garbage. When you get to that class 4 civilization where you're talking like gods, do they get to a point where they can universe hop?
That's probably like type.
I'm talking like multiverse. Like, this universe is about to die. Let's just go over next door.
Don't see why not.
Yeah.
If you can, if you have 100% control over all of the energy in the universe, why not? Sure.
Yeah, I don't see why not. I mean, at that point, if they've made it that far, if they have control of one universe, like that's again something we quite literally cannot fathom. Like, who is to say that they can't just take that extra step? How hard could that really be? And just break the wall and
it would only violate every single law of physics that ever existed. But
yeah.
Well, so my question is, if that's theoretically the end step, is it possible that a civilization like that, a god, did start this next universe? That they did start that? Like, is that theoretically possible?
That they started this universe, like
if you can harness all the energy in the universe, could you start a new one? Could that be our Big Bang? Throwing stuff at the wall, seeing what's
I don't see why not. If they just were like, boom, new universe, new universe just dropped. Like, it's entirely possible.
This mixtape going to be fire 4 billion years.
There is another alternative then, to get to what you were saying. If we're talking about outward expansion, going from this center point elsewhere in the physical realm to transferring to another universe, there is, and Ben, I know you're going to know this, the Matryoshka brain. Have you guys heard of that?
Ooh, I've heard this.
So this is a proposed solution to the Fermi Paradox, is the Matryoshka brain, where everything is so far away and it might not even be worth it to go all the way over there, especially if they're going to fight back and all that. And why venture outward and explore real space when you can build a supercomputer around a star using a Dyson sphere and explore cyberspace instead, where an entire civilization could upload their consciousness into a Matryoshka brain. And yes, I know this is extreme science fiction at this point, but if your entire civilization could upload your consciousness into virtual reality and experience, time slow down and witness eternal ecstasy with no problems whatsoever, why would you bother traveling halfway across the galaxy to commit genocide?
So basically, you decide on the fact that life is not futile, but discovery of alien civilization and attempting to colonize, explore, what have you, the galaxy is futile. So we're just going to create something that is 1,000 times better in itself because we can, and there's no point in doing something else. That's what you're saying?
That's what I'm saying. I mean, like, if you think about it, you live in a house in a subdivision. You know that your neighbors occupy the houses next to you, but you're not going to go over there just for the sake of taking their stuff. You know, you might bring cookies every now and then, wave at each other in the driveway, but you would just rather just stay in your own place.
It's just acknowledgement.
Do your own thing.
I'm happy you're here.
Yeah.
That is very interesting. So in theory, you know, keeping pace with that, would that not also end with the heat death of the solar? Like, let's say we never even leave the solar system and we link up every single human to this cyberspace reality, the metaverse, if you will. Sorry. But, you know, we hook up everyone to the cyberspace reality. We have intelligent AI. It automates the rest of our functions, so we don't ever have to exit this eternal bliss, this eternal ecstasy. With the explosion or the implosion, you know, the heat death of our sun, would that not decimate the solar system and take us with it?
Ben?
For sure, we'd all get clapped.
But you'd be really happy when it happened.
I mean, well, so here's what I'm thinking. I'm hearing you guys discuss this, and I'm like, this is the Matrix, except you don't know you're in like a pod on the Earth eating robots. Like, so yeah, I mean, it's a theoretical possibility. Here's the thing: we need to call it to an end because I just drank a gallon of water and I have to pee. So, gentlemen,
right. More on this next time.
Absolutely,
yeah, absolutely. It was awesome to record with you guys. Thank you so much for hopping on. Awesome discussion. Thank you so much for sharing. I bid you all adieu.
Thank you.